Morning Consult poll shows Joe Biden leading in the Democratic primary and Bernie Sanders in second place.
Also, apparently, the former vice president would consider a Republican running mate. I think everybody's got a lot to say about that. Team Rising is here to weigh in on the merits of that idea. In the House today is Progressive Change Campaign Committee co-founder Adam Green. That a lot of seasons. And Marshall Kosloff, he's a media analyst, two great friends of the show. It's great to see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so Morning Consult, we can throw the poll up on there. Crystal and I love this one. It's plus or minus 1%. I mean, effectively, it's interesting what we've been talking about here for the last couple of days is that Biden is at 32, Bernie's at 21. In February of last year in the same poll, exact same thing, right? I mean, so really the only thing that's changed, Adam, is a 14% climb for Elizabeth, or is a 9% climb for Elizabeth Warren from 5 to 14. What do you generally make of this and what the dynamics need to shift in order for, I mean, can anything change at this point? 34 days to go to the Iowa caucus.
I like that framing around a Warren surge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I threw you that bone, right?
It's also worth noting that a month ago in the Quinnipiac poll, Mayor Pete was at 16%. Here he's at 8%. His percent of the vote has gone down.
That's right.
Here's why I attribute it to. We have a lot of scared progressive voters who are electability voters who are unfortunately gravitating to Biden or sticking with Biden, who need to be told that his positions are unpopular. And as we're seeing time and time again, including this Republican vice president thing, he is not our best foot forward to run for president. So I think Sanders and Warren forces need to do together is prosecute that case, make the case that their ideas are popular and that one of them would be the best foot forward for the Democratic Party.
Well, so that's interesting, right, Mark? Why haven't they done that? I mean, effectively, the real first opening shot I saw against Joe Biden has come from Bernie about the Iraq War. And that's kind of familiar territory for him. He had those couple of moments on the debate stage where he said, let's talk about your record, Joe. You did PNTR with China, you did NAFTA, you did Iraq. Doesn't he need to be doing that all the time, Marshall, in order to actually, prosecute the case that Biden is a completely unelectable candidate?
See, I don't think. Yeah. Actually, I disagree with that. I sort of disagree with that premise, too, because it's not clear voters who are in that Biden category who have stuck with him through everything, through all the different gates, who stuck with him through those policy attacks, who stuck with him through the sort of incoherence or lack of charisma. They're there with him because they're not interested. I don't think these are idea-centric voters.
So is he an inevitable candidate? Is that the
for
case?
Those voters? Yeah. If you're in that category of voter for him, you're voting for him because you want his return to normalcy. You're not looking for, you're not debating healthcare, you're not debating any of those other topics.
Right, Biden has the biggest gap between whether you agree with him on the issues and and your support for him.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't like exactly where he stands, but at least I think he can win.
Yeah.
So how do you persuade people that he can't win? I think Bernie's saying that Trump will eat his lunch maybe is a start, but how do you move from issues into electability?
So I think that's why the that's why Mayor Pete in Iowa and New Hampshire is going to be incredibly important. I think if Joe Biden performs poorly in the early states, that's going to sort of knock down that actual argument.
It's very possible. What do you think?
Now part of what Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders can say is, look how Trump campaigned to appeal to outside the box people. He railed against Wall Street speeches. He railed against corrupt corporate trade deals. He railed against the swamp in Washington. He was lying about all that stuff, but he tapped into a shake up the system sentiment that Joe Biden is the worst foot forward if we're going to represent.
Right.
That's why I think that those two sides need to stick together. Now, I will say one thing that's been on my mind a little bit recently.
Yeah, please.
So a very good friend of mine last week, a progressive champion, endorsed Bernie Sanders. And when talking about why, he pointed out that Bernie Sanders for a lifetime has supported opposing cuts to Social Security, which I completely agree with. But then kind of slipped in that he's always known that we must expand Social Security. And said that together we fought on this, and we've made this a mainstream issue, and we haven't looked back and cut her off the table. There was a bit of erasure that went on there. Everybody knows, and Ryan was there for this chapter of history, Elizabeth Warren was the pivotal figure in making a speech for expanding Social Security. Jim Kessler from the corporate think tank Third Way went on Ari Robinhoff's show when he was a radio host and said that the final straw that made them attack Elizabeth Warren in the Wall Street Journal was her speech against for expanding Social Security. And that led in 2015 to Bernie Sanders coming out for it, and eventually Elizabeth Warren getting Joe Manchin to go in with her on expand Social Security resolution. There was a vote overnight, and we went from having 8 senators to 42 senators on the record. Why do I mention this? Not because I care about an endorsement tweet. Honestly, I would have just let it go.
Yeah. Who was it?
Good friend of ours.
Okay.
But this, I don't think it was intentional, but this was the cherry on top of a series of erasure that we've seen over this campaign, where this bold progressive woman who has led the charge for things like a wealth tax, canceling student debt, breaking up big tech like Amazon, universal child care and expand Social Security, is not giving her equal credit. And I've been on this set before as a Warren supporter saying Bernie Sanders deserves complete credit for moving Medicare for all and issues like free public tuition into the national debate. So in this final month, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on a lot of people, and I hope that Warren and Sanders supporters can be mutually respectful of each other's accomplishments. I want to stay here today.
Right. So I'll put on my Crystal hat. And okay, so what Crystal would say is, you're right. She's done all these, technocratic things, but it's from a technocratic perspective and not from a movement perspective. Ryan, you can fill in the blanks here, as I'm not exactly one of this camp, but I mean that is what the core argument is, right? And so to get into that,
it would be, but it's convenient the way it always breaks down.
Sure.
So Medicare for all, you could call it technocratic if you wanted to, because it's a long, complicated bill, but it also has a movement behind it. Expanding Social Security is actually not that technocratic of an idea in the sense that it's kind of simple. The calculation is, here's what Social Security is, it should be a little bit higher. You don't need a quant to come in there and figure that one out for you. And you also need kind of a movement behind you. And what was so important about that Social Security fight is that the entire Democratic apparatus was pushing deficit reduction through end of 2009 up until this period. And this was the first pushback that said, no, we're not focusing on deficit reduction and austerity. Actually, we're going to go the other direction. We're going to expand benefits for people. I understand why she doesn't get as much credit, though. 2016, she wasn't there. Right. And there's so much focus on Medicare for all, and that's not been her core issue.
What do you think, Marshall? Why? I mean, look, we're both from the right. We're kind of using our analyst hat here. But, why is it, do you think? I mean, we've spent a lot of time here talking about Bernie and Warren. I mean, a lot of these Bernie supporters, they seem to have coalesced around him after that heart attack. And that's really what I guess, at least the narrative seems to be. Why do you think that is from a movement versus technocratic perspective?
See, I just want to push back against the idea of describing anything complicated as technocratic.
Sure.
I think that's a really bad call to speak ill of Crystal, who's not here. Because basically because look what happened with Obamacare, right? Obamacare, it's complicated. Look at, I think if you were sort of on this show in 2009, not that it existed, if it had, I don't think we would have been focusing on the idea that if the website was designed badly, the actual bill and the actual healthcare legislation would be impacted for years. So I think just to besmirch any sort of focus on detail and complication as technocratic isn't going to abound well in the long term.
I think it's partly fair. I think it's partly fair, though, to call Obamacare technocratic in this sense. To me, the definition of technocratic is something where you don't take on the existent power structures and you try to figure out ways to improve people's lives without actually confronting sources of power, like the insurance industry or the pharmaceutical industry. And that is sort of what they did with the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a role for political leaders in legitimizing movements.
Yes.
I think that's what's happened with Bernie and Warren, right? Medicare for All was given a huge kickstart because Bernie took the lead in 2015, 2016. Things like taking on big tech monopolies and things like a wealth tax, which were obscure ideas, technocratic white paper ideas before, have been given new life that the grassroots can organize around because of Elizabeth Warren. All I'm saying is that in this final month, I hope that Sanders supporters and Warren supporters are mutually respectful of those accomplishments and keep our eye on the prize, which is making clear that Joe Biden opposes all of these popular ideas and it's likely our worst foot forward from an electability perspective.
And to that point, I was joking with Ryan earlier. I mean, Biden. I mean, let's play some sound of him saying he would pick, or he might pick a Republican vice president.
The answer is I would, but I can't think of one now. No. Look here. No, I'm serious. No, here's what I mean. Let me explain that. There's some really decent Republicans that are out there still. But here's the problem right now of the well-known ones. They've got to step up. Whomever I would pick, were I fortunate enough to be your nominee, I'd pick someone who was simpatico with me, who knew what my priorities were and knew what I wanted to do. We could disagree on tactic, but strategically we'd have to be on the exact same page.
Oh, well, there you go. See, I joked to Ryan, he'd pick John McCain as vice president. They share the same ideology, right? I mean, ultimately.
From the band that brought you Corn Pop comes that moment right there.
Yeah.
Look, I think that, again, in terms of best foot forward from an electability perspective, he would be 78 years old when he's sworn in, 82 years old at the end of his first term. We need a Democratic vice president under Joe Biden, right? That right there, I think, is an alarm bell that should go off for many senior voters in Iowa and New Hampshire who know that we need a fully robust and competent ticket, not a Republican.
See, what's funny here is that I don't think it's an alarm bell whatsoever. He's not going to pick a Republican. Everyone knows he's not going to pick a Republican. That's why he was very specific about, I can't name one. That wasn't a gaffe. There literally is no Republican living who he would pick. Right? Maybe John McCain. John McCain is basically John McCain. Rest in peace, obviously, is probably the only one you could sort of think of, but no, he's doing what he does best, which is focusing on the fact that those 32% of Democratic voters who have been there for a while, I think they like to imagine they'd be fine with the Republican
They
on the
love
ticket.
the idea.
The idea,
our
very reasonable.
Isn't that
Very normal.
You were talking about this earlier, which is that these people, they love that idea.
It's just brutal. You're trying to get elected in a Democratic primary, which means you have to persuade Democratic primary voters, and they have been beaten down for 40 years and have some strange ideas.
All right, hold your thoughts, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back.